Hello dear students. So guys, here now we are going to do current electricity 9 cents for the 9th standard as well as the chapter number 9 out here. So we'll do this chapter guys. It's a very simple chapter, very straightforward. Uh, so it's very basic what you're learning about electricity now, and you'll have it in full detail actually in the 10th standard. So what you're doing is now just like the tip of the iceberg is just the 10% of what you actually have in the 10th standard. So for now it's just very basic and there's very little application, just some little theory and the definitions and all, and very simple numericals are covered in this. So guys, see first what do you mean by first now you need to know that there are two types of current guys. Okay, there are two types of current, and maybe you must have heard of these two types of current. They are called as AC and DC. Okay, they are called as AC and DC. There is also a very popular band called AC/DC. Okay, but out here now DC means what, direct current. So some people they call it DC current. That's wrong. DC current would mean direct current. So it's called as only DC. That means what? Direct current. And AC means what? Alternating current. Now what do you mean by DC and AC? So you have very little basic about it. Again, as I said, you'll be learning more about it in the 10th standard about AC and DC in the electromagnetism chapter. So the most important thing to note out here, that direct current, you may not understand completely right now, but that is all you need to know now. That direct current is the current of constant magnitude. Okay, that's a current of constant magnitude. So obviously this must be which current? Alternating will be what? Current of varying magnitude, in case they ask you for to differentiate. And direct current is the current which can flow only in one direction. So this will flow only in one direction, whereas this one can reverse its direction. So basically keep on reversing its direction after every cycle. So you can say in general, where do you get DC? You get DC or direct current always from what? From the cells. So all the cells which we use, they all give basically DC, direct current. So the cells which you use in your wall clocks, in your remote control toy cars, in your watch, wherever you are using a cell, basically they all give direct current, meaning wherever the current is stored, you are storing a current, you can say that's a direct current. In AC means alternating current, the current which you are using in your house, like for tube light, fan, whatever daily appliances and all. So the current which you get from your mains, that's called as a AC, that is an alternating current. So in this chapter, when you read the chapter, you'll realize that they haven't given much about AC, though I have written just the differentiation and all. In fact, even you don't have anything about AC in your textbook. Now guys, what is a cell? So here we are talking about which cells? Electrical cells. Okay, so far you must have done plant cell, animal cell and all. Here we are learning about an electric cell. So what happens in an electric cell? In an electric cell, we basically convert chemical energy into electrical energy. Okay, so that's how the electricity is produced. So if you ever took any cell, like those pencil cells, remote control, after they are discharged now, break them. It's a little dangerous though. So if you break it, or if you ever seen an open cell, you'll find there are all those, like you'll see some kind of a black color powder like carbon or something. So those are the basically the chemicals. So that chemical reacts and then they produce what? Electrical energy. Clear? And that electrical energy basically sends what? A current in the circuit, and that's how you can use it. But as we know, as you keep on using it for some time, after some time the chemical reaction, all the reaction has it has completed, and hence now there will be no more current produced, because now you are not able to convert chemical into electrical energy anymore. Okay, so that is the simple concept about a cell. What is it? They can ask you what is a cell or what are the energy conversion in a cell. Just also to know that the important parts which are there in a cell, there are two parts. One which is called as electrodes. Okay, so those who are good at chemistry, they must be knowing already, or if you've done the chapter called electrolysis in chemistry, you will know more detail about this. So cell consists of these two important parts. There is an electrodes and electrolytes. Electrodes, if you know, these are like basically anode and cathode. Okay, they are anode and cathode, whereas in electrolytes, it's basically a liquid. You can say like some solution like copper sulfate or sulfuric acid. Any of those acid or something, they can be used out here. Okay, acidified water or something. And in that liquid, basically, what are there? There are ions. So they are called as anions and cations. This is actually not in your portion. Again, I'm just telling you for your knowledge. So anode are those which are positively charged, cathodes are negatively charged. Anions are negatively charged and cations are positively charged. So anions get attracted to anode, whereas cations get attracted to cathode, and probably that's how they have been given those names. Okay, now guys, we'll learn about what are the different type of cells. So the two type of cells that we are going to learn about, they are called as a primary cell and a secondary cell. So these are the cells which I've shown the tabulation out here. Now what is the basic difference in primary and secondary cell? So primary cell, in these ones the chemical reaction is irreversible, meaning the reactants which are formed, the reactants, when they react, they'll form a product, but the product cannot be converted back into the reactants. And here the chemical reaction is reversible. What do you mean by reversible? So you can convert your product back into the reactants. That's the difference between both. Got it? So it's irreversible and reversible. So because the chemical reaction is irreversible, these kind of cells cannot be recharged. Remember, you cannot recharge this kind of cells. Why? Because the reaction is not reversible. Whereas these ones, they can be recharged because the reaction is reversible. Simple, that's why. Okay. Next point of difference is, in primary cell you can convert chemical energy into what? Electrical energy. In secondary cell, what we can do? We can convert electrical into chemical, chemical into electrical, and so on, as in whenever you want to convert. So here both the conversions are possible. You see, electrical into chemical, and again chemical energy into electrical. So both way it is possible. Okay. Then next thing is very important is that the primary cells. So in the primary cells now, it only produces weak current. They do not produce very strong current, whereas this can produce small and large current both. Okay. What do you mean by weak currents and large current? So weak current means what? That the current is so weak that it can be used only for small appliances, like for a clock, for your watch, for a toy car, for remote controls or something. But when you say secondary cells, they can be used even to light, like you can operate tube lights, fans on them. So for 8-10 hours you'll be able to use the tube lights or the fans also, and it will still work. And that's the reason this kind of, now the primary cells, they're obviously very light in weight and they are also cheap. Okay, so they usually, if you bought a remote control cells, they come for some 12-15 rupees and they are light in weight. Secondary cells, they're obviously heavy and they're also costly. So the cells which we basically use in your vehicles, automobiles and all, those are all secondary cell. You might have seen some ads, Amaron, Excite, those batteries and all. If you've seen this movie 3 Idiots, guys, in that they show that this Ranchor, that is Amir Khan, he makes a vacuum pump and all in the gym and all out there. So they get those they get the car batteries from some few cars, and then they start the electricity in the hostel. And the last thing is, guys, the example now. So the example of this is simple voltaic cell and Daniell cell. So these are the cells which are named after the scientists, Volt and Daniell. That's why they are named like that. In secondary cell, lead accumulator. Lead accumulator basically means the car batteries, or even nickel ferrous accumulator. Guys, now I have a question. Tell me the battery which you are using. Okay, like for example, your cell phone. Your cell phone battery is which cell? Primary cell or a secondary cell? Okay, it will be a secondary cell. Why? Because you can simply charge them. And if you know, they are also called as what? Lithium ion battery. Another example of primary cell is a dry cell. The cells which you use, as I told you, in your wall clocks and all, those are all also called as dry cell. So guys, obviously very important this differentiation. Better to learn all of them, but at least 3 you should know by heart. Also, there are more examples of primary and secondary cells in your textbook. You need to learn all of them, because they can also ask you to sort out those cells. Like they'll give you just name of a few cells and ask you find out which is primary and which is a secondary cell. Now next thing is look, these are, I've just got some picture where you can make out, these are some of these cells. So in the primary cell, if you notice here, you might have seen this one actually. This is those Duracell, which they say, it lasts longer, but they can be used only once. And then these are zinc carbon cells, Panasonic, Eveready, any of those brands, which can also be, these can also be used once only. So whichever you cannot recharge, basically those are primary. You can see these ones, you have a charger. You can charge this kind of a cell. So these are called as what? All secondary cells. Especially this one which I have shown over here, guys. Check out these ones. So these are the cells which are usually there in your car batteries or in your bike, Activa, all those, in all the heavy vehicles and all. So those are called as the secondary cells. Okay, now guys, after this we will start now about the current. So let's say out here you have a wire. Okay, I am drawing an enlarged view of a wire, guys. So this is a metallic wire which is supposed to be very thin though, but it's too big out here because I am showing a magnified view of that wire. Now this wire will have got what? It has got free electrons. Since it's a metallic wire, say for example a copper wire, so what will it have? It will have free electrons. Now every electron in this wire has got a charge, positive or negative. It has got a negative charge. How much is this charge? So 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 C. What does this C stand for? It stands for coulomb. Okay, it stands for coulomb. So coulomb is a unit of charge. This is a charge of 1 electron. Now if you want to produce a charge of 1 coulomb, what are the number of electrons you need? So you need just 6.25 into 10 raised to 18 electrons. So these are the number of electrons which you need so that you can produce a charge of 1 coulomb. Obviously a very high number of electrons. Now another very important thing, guys, remember that in this whole chapter of electricity, whatever you are going to learn, all those quantities are all scalar quantities only. There is no vector quantity only in this, remember, in the whole chapter. So it's a very simple way to remember. So obviously current electricity is also what? Current is also what? A scalar quantity. Charge is also a scalar quantity. Now guys, let's say if we force all these electrons to move in one particular direction from A to B, we'll be learning later on about how to push them into one particular direction. Let's assume right now we are pushing them from A to B. So whenever there is a flow, there is a stream of these electrons moving from one end to another end, then we say that what have we generated? Current. Okay, so whenever you are able to move all these electrons from one position to another, one place to other place, then we say what? That you can produce what? Current. Now how do you define current? So current is defined as what? Current is the rate of flow of charge. Guys, whenever you say rate of flow of charge, rate means what? With respect to time. Just like we had done in acceleration, rate of change of velocity. So here it is what? Rate of flow of charge. So how fast these charges are flowing, these electrons, that determines the charge. That will determine the current, Now the symbol for charge is Q, symbol for time is T, which is user friendly as usual, and the symbol for current is I. So guys, if you'll notice out here, now the symbols are not very user friendly like how I used to have earlier. M for mass, V for velocity, got it? Now D for distance, A for acceleration. Now these are not very user friendly, so you'll have little difficulty in remembering this. So remember, current is I and charge is Q. So what can I say? That current, that is I, is equal to Q upon T. So current is defined as the rate of flow of charge. Now what is the unit of time? SI unit second. Unit of charge is what? Coulomb. Unit of current is what? Ampere, capital A. Those who find difficult to write capital A, they need not worry. What can you do? You can just write simply what? Ampere. You know why to write like this in lower cases? Because it is named after a scientist. Ampere, that's why. Okay. So from this I can also say that 1 ampere is equal to 1 coulomb upon 1 second. So guys, we can also say that 1 ampere is equal to 1 coulomb upon 1 second. So this is the conversion. So 1 ampere is equal to 1 coulomb per second. They can also ask you to define this. Now how do you define 1 ampere? So guys, 1 ampere is the current produced when a charge of 1 coulomb is passing through a conductor in a time of 1 second. So guys, if you realize, you can just just use this formula and these units and you will be able to define it. You do not need to by heart it. So 1 ampere is the current produced when a charge of 1 coulomb is passing through a conductor in a time of 1 second. Clear guys? So it's very, very important definition. It is usually been asked in the exams to define 1 ampere. Now another thing, how will you find out? Now I told you that 1 electron has a charge of 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Now how will you find the charge of all these electrons out here inside this? So how do you find total charge? What you have to do is N into E. What is N into E now? N is the number of electrons, E is the charge of 1 electron. So just unitary method basically. Whatever is the charge of 1 electron, multiply by the N number of electrons. That will give you the total charge. Okay. Now, second thing, you have to also know the smaller units or the smaller units of current. Now, what are the smaller units of current? One is milliampere. So a milliampere is 10 raised to minus 3 ampere. Then what is a microampere? So it is equal to 10 raised to minus 6 ampere is called as a microampere. So out here you must have noticed that we are not using bigger units of current, like we are not using kilo ampere and mega ampere and all, because we don't need only that high amount of current. We don't use only in our daily life also. So these are the smaller units of current. And how do you measure this current? By which device? So that device is called as ammeter. Okay, it's called as ammeter. I hope I don't need to explain you why it's called as ammeter. You can see how it gets its name. Am is the short form for the ampere and meter is the name of the device. Okay, so it's called as what? Ammeter. So guys, this is all very, very important. You can pause the video here and start copying down all these in your notebook, because all these formulas, conversions, all these will be used in the numericals also. Just one more very important thing that I did not mention earlier was that let's assume that the electrons are flowing from A to B. Now if the electrons are flowing from A to B, remember, current will flow always in the opposite direction. Okay, this current is called as which current? Conventional current. Now I'll tell you the story behind it. What is the story? Actually, earlier in the beginning, when the scientists were developing the theory, when they had already developed the theory, they thought that the electrons are moving from A to B and the current is always opposing them. Okay, but then later on they realized that the electrons and the current, they are both flowing in the same direction. So what they did is, instead of changing the whole theory, they just made up another new term. So for that convenience, they named that current as what? Conventional current. Okay, though anyways all that is not important for us. So I'll just tell you once again to avoid the confusion. Just remember that the flow of the current is opposite to the direction of the flow of the electrons. So electrons and current, they always flow in the opposite direction according to your books and for your exams. Okay guys, now whenever these electrons, you see this figure now, when these electrons, when they want to move ahead, there is something who tries to stop them. Now who will try to stop them or block their path? So that is the positive ions, you can say. So those positively charged ions, they'll try to stop the motion of these electrons. So these, when these electrons are flowing, they will be what, they will be obstructed, correct? And this obstruction, what they experience, that is called as what? Resistance. So guys, out here you can actually use the literal meaning of this word resistance. So what is the symbol for resistance? Capital R. That is user friendly symbol. You can take the literal meaning of the word resistance, guys. Resistance means what? Obstruction to the flow of the electrons or to the flow of the current by a conductor is called as resistance. Now the unit of resistance is very, very spiritual. So those who are watching this video right now and they are very spiritual, I'll advise them, they remove their shoes or the chappals right now. They can rather fold their hands and stand, guys, because the unit of resistance is written as ohm. Okay, or you can also write like this, which is actually called as what, this is a Greek alphabet which is called as what? Omega. But how do you read it? As ohm only. Okay, I'll also want to clarify, guys, they do not accept writing ohm like this. So there are always, few innocent kids, they end up writing like this. A lot of people write this in the beginning of the paper also, Om Namah Shivaya. On every new notebook also they write Om and all. They're expecting very good results and all because of this. So anyways guys, you cannot write that Om. Remember, you can only write OHM, Om, or the sign of omega. That is all that they accept. And what is resistance? Remember the main keyword out here, that resistance is an obstruction. It is an obstruction to the flow of the current by the conductor. That is called as the resistance. Now there are 4 important factors which can affect the resistance. And those factors, remember MOLD or mild. Now what are those factors out here? So see, what does M stand for? M stands for the material. So it depends upon the nature of the material, what kind of a material you are using. It depends upon that. Second is the area of cross section. Okay, I hope nobody have a doubt in what do you mean by area of cross section. In case somebody have a doubt, guys, look, I'll show you out here. Look over here. This is the area of the cross section, what I've marked out here. So you take a piece of a chalk, break it, whatever you can see, then that is the area of cross section. Then the length of the conductor. Length of the conductor, and the last is the temperature of the conductor. Got it? So guys, these are the factors. Now how all these affect? So now in the material, like we have an option, like for example, there are some material which have a low resistance. For example, copper. So copper offers a very low resistance, and that's why the connecting wires in your house. What do you mean by connecting wires? All the wiring which is done inside your house. Okay, there they make use of which wire? Copper wire. There is also silver, which is even a better conductor than copper, but we do not use silver for wiring in a house simply because it is expensive. So you can might as well make what? Ornaments out of it. Now material. So there are some material which have got what? Higher resistance also. For example, tungsten. If any of you know, tungsten is also used for making the filament of a bulb. So if you've seen those coiled filament in the yellow light bulbs, they are basically what? Tungsten. Also heating elements in your electric geyser and all, they are made out of tungsten. Then area of cross section. Say you have two options. There is one wire which is a thin wire, okay, like this, and there is other wire which is a thicker wire. So thin and thick. So you can see one is like a ball pen and one is like a whiteboard marker, like that thick. Now if you have electrons to flow through them, let's say there are these 2 electrons flowing through this and there are other 2 electrons flowing through this also. In which one you feel they will go more freely or with less number of collision? Here there will be lesser resistance. Simply why? Because they have more space to go. So remember, area of cross section is inversely proportional to the resistance. So more the area of cross section, less is the resistance. Okay. Then length of a conductor. This is very obvious, directly proportional to the resistance. So because if the length is more, electrons will travel more distance, they will go through more collisions. And the temperature is also what, guys? Directly proportional. How? See, let's say for example there is an electron which is supposed to travel from here in this direction, and there are these positive ions out here or the molecules. So once you increase the temperature, what will happen? They'll start vibrating above their mean position. So they keep on vibrating out here continuously, right? And because of these vibrations, what will happen? Now they will obstruct the path of the electrons more often, and that's why they will increase the resistance. So resistance will increase with the increase in the temperature. Okay. Now guys, next thing, so this is also again very important concept: definition of resistance, units of resistance, and the factors affecting the resistance. Again out here they ask some usually application questions which are based on this thing. Now there's another thing now. The next concept is about the potential difference. Okay, so this is one of the most important concept now, potential difference. So simple words, you can call it as also as like the voltage, just for your understanding. Potential, the symbol for potential difference is PD, or you can write what, just V. Okay, V stands for voltage or potential difference out here. Guys, now let's say first you have got one body A which is positively charged. There is another body B which is what, neutral. When you say neutral, you know what it means. It means it has got equal numbers of protons and electrons. Now when you connect both these bodies through a metallic wire, can you tell me how will the electrons flow? The electrons will flow from B to A, remember. Okay, so B is neutral and A is positively charged, so protons will attract the electrons. So electrons will flow from B to A and the current will flow from A to B. Okay guys, next example now. Again say you've got a body A and then there is another body B out here, and again they are connected through what? Through a metallic wire. So out here again, let's say now B is negative this time and A is neutral. Now how will the electrons flow? Okay, so remember that now the electrons will flow from B to A again. Okay, why the electrons will flow from B to A? Because it cannot go from A to B. A is neutral, but A has got protons, right? So it will pull the electrons from the body B. So again you will see what, that the electrons will flow from the negative body to the positive body, to the uncharged body. So this is how the electrons are flowing. So the current will again flow in what, opposite direction. Then guys, the last one now. In the last example, say out here I have got two bodies again, A and B. So A is positively charged here, and then B is what, negatively charged here, and then there is a wire through which you've connected them. Guys, now how will the electrons flow? So again the same thing, electrons have to go what, from negative to positive, and the current will flow how, from positive to negative always. Got it? So this body which is always at positive is actually called as what, higher potential or high potential, and this one is called as what, lower or low potential. So current always flow from where to where, from high potential to low potential. If you remember, we had done in the heat chapter that heat always goes from higher temperature to lower temperature. Same way the charge will always go, or you can say the current will always flow from higher potential to lower potential. Electrons will go from lower potential to higher potential. Okay, now again, how long will the electrons keep on flowing? Till what, they both reach what, electrical equilibrium, meaning they both have got the same kind of a charge. Till then they will keep on flowing. Now, another thing, what if this was highly positive? Say there are even many more number of protons out here. There are many more number of electrons out here. What difference will you notice? That now your electrons are going to flow what? Faster. Okay, your electrons will flow faster because now it's highly positive, the other body is highly negative. So this is called, so what basically we conclude from here is that the current which is flowing through this conductor, how much current will flow? It directly proportional to the potential difference, meaning the difference in the concentrations. So we can say what, that V is proportional to I. So potential difference is directly proportional to the current. So more the potential difference, more faster or more the current will flow through it. Now guys, if you want to remove this proportional sign, then I need to insert what? A constant. And what is that constant called here as R? Means what? Resistance. Okay, so V is equal to IR, and this is called as Ohm's law, guys. Very, very important law. Very important from your exam point of view. You'll definitely find it in your exam paper. If you don't find it, then change your name. Guys, got it? So that is called as Ohm's law. What does Ohm's law state? The same thing. It states that the current which is flowing through a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across its ends. But there is one condition. What is the condition for this Ohm's law to be hold true? The condition is that the temperature must remain the constant, or the physical conditions should also remain the same. Okay, so fine. Now guys, another thing that was about the Ohm's law. So as I told you, it's very, very important. So you need to learn the Ohm's law. And guys, to learn this formula, to remember this formula, I have dedicated this formula to one of my ex student whose name was Varun Iyer. So I remember it V for Varun and IR for Iyer. That's how I remember this formula. So maybe it will be helpful to you probably if you can just remember, otherwise as V equal to IR or V or something, however, whatever trick you use it, just remember the formula. Now guys, also one more thing, potential difference is also defined in terms of the work done. Now actually you have not learned about the work and only have it in the 10th standard, but just for your understanding now, let's say if I'm moving this positive charge from one place to another place, from A to B. So in moving any charge now, we have to do some work. Okay, in moving any charge, you have to do some work. So the amount of work which you do in moving a unit positive charge. What do you mean by unit positive charge? One single charge is called as a potential difference. You may not understand guys this thoroughly, but as I said, because right now you're in between, like you're in the transition state, you don't know some of the topics, that's why. So I'll just tell you in simple words, when you want to push an electron or when you want to push a charge from point A to point B, you have to do some work on it, and the work which you do on that, okay, is called as a potential difference, meaning the work done per unit charge is called as potential difference. So what is potential difference also defined as? It is equal to the work done in moving a unit positive charge from one point to another point. So guys, we are going to have problems based on this formula. W is equal to V is equal to W upon Q. You'll also have the problem which are based on the previous formula, that is Varun Iyer also. Guys, where did I write Varun Iyer? I forgot. Yeah, here Varun Iyer also. So copy down these two formulas also. We are going to do some problems which are based on this one. Clear? Anybody remembers what's the unit of work? It is what? Joule. Q is what? Coulomb. And V is what? Potential difference. So it is written as V. Okay, so guys, remember potential difference is always written as V. So for example, see, if I write V is equal to 20V, what does it mean? Potential difference is equal to 20 volts. That's how you read it. There are a few smart, intelligent kids, they cancel V and V and then they free, hey, I proved 1 is equal to 20. Remember, this is all rubbish. You can't do that. Because both the V's mean the different thing. They are not, one is a potential difference, physical quantity, and one is a unit. That's why. Okay. And if you are getting confused, best thing is what, write V is equal to what? 20 volt in full only, so you don't get confused only incident. Okay, now guys, now the last thing that we have to do in this chapter is first there are two more things, which is like insulators and conductors. Probably you must be knowing also what are insulators and conductors. So conductors are the ones which will let the electricity and the heat to flow through them, whereas insulators are those which will not let electricity and heat to flow through them. That is one point, guys. Second point, you can say, so therefore insulators have got no free electrons, whereas conductors have got a free electrons. And third point, you can write the examples. So you can say like rubber, wood, plastic, glass, paper, etc. These all are examples of a insulator. One more very important example is pure water. Remember, pure water or distilled water is an example of an insulator. Whereas for a conductor, so all the metals, they are basically conductors. Human body is also considered as a conductor. Remember, guys, important example. And any another form of water like impure water, acidified water, water containing salt, mineral water, tap water, they all are considered to be conductors. Okay. Then guys, next thing now is about how do you draw a circuit diagram in these ones. So see, also guys, yeah, this was the difference definitions of the potential difference in terms of the work done, which I had mentioned some time back. So it is the potential difference is what basically it's equal to the work done in transferring a unit positive charge from one conductor to or through a metallic wire, meaning one point to another point. Okay, so you can pause the video here, you can read and learn this if you want to. Okay guys, now next thing is about the symbols now. So there are circuit diagrams, and to draw the circuit diagrams we need the symbols. Now guys, what are basically the circuit diagrams? So circuit diagram is what, it is like the simplified version, like how you explain them, how you are making a circuit, how is the wiring and all done in your house. So you don't, when you want to draw a cell, you do not actually draw an artistic picture of a cell or something, you use symbols for them. Okay, so out here basically we are using what we have shown here. We can see in the first figure we have shown a cell. Now guys, this is very important out here. If you notice here, we have got one stroke which is positive and the other stroke is what? Negative out here. Correct? Bigger stroke is positive terminal, smaller stroke is negative terminal. What's the difference in the cell and a battery? So you can say many cells make a battery. So you can see the connections out here, like they have put, how many cells are there guys? Count 1, 2, 3. There are 3 cells used together. So I can simply say what? That many cells or more than one cell make a battery. Okay. Then guys, the last one is a AC source. Remember alternating current we had spoken about. So what happens in AC source is basically these are the mains, the current which we use in a house. So you can see you have to just draw a circle with those two straight lines and there is a sine wave inside, which means what? It's an AC. Got it? So they can ask you to draw guys these figures, and you may have to draw them even in the circuit diagrams, or they may ask you only the symbol also. And also guys, I have given the markings for all of this in the textbook. So you learn strictly only the markings that I have given in the textbook. Do not learn the whole thing. Okay, you don't need to follow the you don't need to by heart the whole thing. Now, so this was the cell. Basically what? This is the source of the current. Now next we are learning about key. So what is a key now? So basically you can put a circuit on or off. Okay, that's, or you can say open or close is called as a key. Now remember, so you can see first there are different types of key or the switch. One is plug key, then there is a switch, and then there is a tapping key. So plug key is like how you have keys for your bikes or cars. You just plug in, you push that key inside. It's something like that only. So there is something like that, like those kind of keys are there in the labs and all. You have to just push it inside, and then it becomes a closed key. So now guys, for out here, if you notice the difference, see there's a dot here inside and there is no dot out here if you noticed. So if you draw the dot, it becomes a closed plug key. Okay, same way, notice the difference in the switch here and here. You can see that it was not, those two wires were not touching, and here they are touching. That's the difference in the closed switch. and the tapping key. Basically the keys you can say which we use for the electric bells, you press it and the moment you release it, it'll again come back to its normal position. So those are called as a tapping key. Okay, so basically what's the function of the key or the switch? To put your current on or off, and hence to put the circuit on or off, or open or close circuit. Now the resistance, what we learned about. So now there are resistance wires are there are resistance box, there is a rheostat or variable resistance. So rheostat is another name for variable resistance. What are variable resistance basically? So these are, you can say, like the regulators at home. You have the regulators for the fan. You can make your fan faster, slower. So that device with which you make slow or fast, it's basically a rheostat. Okay, it's called as a rheostat. You can increase resistance or decrease resistance with the help of that. Now the first one which they have shown out here, that's a fixed resistance. Okay, that's a fixed resistance. What do you mean fixed resistance? It will always offer a fixed amount of resistance, say 20 ohm, always 20 ohm. Look at the pictures for variable resistance. These are two different ways you can draw a variable resistor. Okay, just for your understanding, look, what do you mean by variable resistor out here? So the current will flow through this, it'll come like that, and then it'll probably go through it like this. Got it? Or you can say other way around, say the current is coming from here and then it'll just go out from here. Imagine if this C, instead of being here, if the C was placed over here, okay, what would have happened then, guys? If C was placed over here, then what would happen? Current would have taken a longer route. It'll come from here, here, and then it will go out. So basically that's how they increase or decrease the resistance. Then next is an ammeter. What's the use of an ammeter? So ammeter will do what? It will measure the current. Very, very important, it has to be connected in series. So there is something called as series and parallel. Again, we are not learning it now. We'll be learning it later in the 10th standard. So ammeter is always connected in series, and notice this is important that you mark plus and a minus out here. Without these signs, again, it will not be considered correct. Same way, what is a voltmeter do? So voltmeter will measure what? Voltage. Correct? So you can see again here there is a plus and a minus for voltmeter also. And a galvanometer is used basically to check the direction of flow of current. Okay, or when you want to measure a very, very small amount of current, then only use a galvanometer. So all of these symbols are very easy. You have to just write A, V, G inside. Okay, that's all. Avengers, remember. Then guys, load. What do you mean by load now? So load means what? Anything which is going to consume electricity is called as a load. Like a bulb they have shown here, or a heater, or any appliances which is basically going to consume energy is called as a load. Then connecting wires we already discussed. Remember what are the connecting wires made up of? They are made up of what? Copper. Okay. So they are simply made up of copper. I hope you will also remember the reason why copper, because it is cheap and it has a very low resistance. So connecting wires are just like one, you can say one straight line. Like these are all the connecting wires out here what they have shown us. Now guys, below this now here we have drawn a very simple circuit diagram. Again, very important from the exam point of view also. So you can see out here, and you can see there is a bulb connected, there is a voltmeter which is in what? Parallel. This is called as a parallel, guys. So make a note that it has to be in parallel. So current will flow from here, flow through ammeter, it will come through this, go through the bulb, and then here, and then through the resistor back to the key. Look at the picture and tell me whether right now your circuit is open or closed circuit. So it is a closed circuit because you can see there is a dot in the key. That's why it's a closed circuit. So once again guys, very, very important circuit diagram. You have to learn to draw this. You can draw the bulb like the load what is shown out here. You don't need to draw this artistic bulb. You can simply draw what? This symbol of bulb. Or if they don't ask bulb, you can just draw heater also. It's okay. But why do we prefer to draw bulb? Because usually in your labs and all we use bulb, because a bulb will glow and hence you can make out whether the circuit is open, closed. You can see it. In a heater you'll have to touch it and you may burn yourself. That's why. And also what we discussed already is out here again, insulators and conductors. You can read this, and yeah. And guys, the next thing now is the efficient use of energy. So just pause the video over here. You are going to read this yourself. I am not going to help you in this. And guys, about the numericals, if you want, you can try it on your own. They are simple, you'll get them. And if you want, then I'll do it in the class along with you all. Okay, so hope you got this chapter well, and it is simple chapter. So after watching this video, again read your textbook properly, follow the markings, and it's quite simple. Okay, bye everyone, take care.